It was a chilly autumn morning in New York. Emma, a 30-year-old marketing manager with laughter that usually filled a room, sat alone in a cafe in Brooklyn. Her latte had gone cold, untouched. She scrolled through her phone again, her thumb moving almost mechanically, opening her messages for the 100th time. Nothing. For 6 months, she and Daniel had been inseparable. Weekend walks along the Hudson, late-night tacos after work, watching indie films at the little theater down the block. Just last week, they had a date that felt almost magical. Dinner at a rooftop bar, the city lights glittering beneath them, his hand warm around hers. She walked home that night thinking, this feels like something real. But now, silence. 3 days. No good morning texts, no calls, not even a casual meme sent her way. Nothing. Emma's mind spun like a wheel stuck in mud. She replayed their last conversation. Did she laugh too loud at his joke? Did asking about his weekend plans make her sound clingy? Was he already losing interest? Her chest tightened as the whispers grew louder. You're not enough. You should have been cooler, less eager. This is your fault. If you've ever sat with your phone in your hand, waiting for a reply that doesn't come, you know the sting. It's not just silence. It's self-doubt seeping in, second by second. You start dissecting your every word, every smile, every pause, as if somewhere in that replay is the reason he disappeared. But here's the truth I want you to hear right now. A man's silence is not always about you. Sometimes it's his story, not your failure. And sometimes his silence is the mirror you didn't know you needed, the mirror that reflects back what you truly deserve. Because silence, in love, speaks. The question is, are you listening? Welcome back to Our Rise, the space where we heal, rise, and fall in love with ourselves again. Today, we're unpacking a topic that almost every woman has faced, the silence in love. In modern dating culture, we expect instant responses, quick text, playful banter, late-night check-ins. When those little pings stop, silence hits harder than any harsh word. We take it personally. We assume it's rejection. But silence isn't just absence. Silence is a language. Sometimes it speaks of fear, sometimes avoidance, sometimes indifference. But it also speaks to us, if we're willing to listen, not about him, but about ourselves. In this video, we'll explore 4 things: why men go silent, how to decode what that silence means, how to respond without losing yourself, and finally, how to turn silence into your superpower. So if you've ever stared at your phone, wondering why the screen stayed blank, this one is for you. Why men go silent. Silence is one of the most unsettling experiences in love, and yet it is one of the most common. To understand it, we need to remember that men and women often move through emotions differently. For many women, silence feels like distance, rejection, or even abandonment. For many men, silence is a coping mechanism, a way to process what they cannot yet put into words. The first reason men go silent is that they need space to process emotions. Think of it like a storm in the sky. Before the rain can fall, the clouds must gather. Some men simply do not know how to express their worries in real time. They retreat inward, trying to organize their thoughts before sharing them. This silence may feel cold to you, but for him, it can be a form of self-preservation. The second reason is fear of commitment. Words can move a relationship forward, and silence can hold it back. When you bring up meeting his family or talking about the future, his quiet may not be reflection. It may be resistance. Silence becomes his shield, a way to delay responsibility he is not ready to face. Third, some men use silence to avoid conflict. Instead of working through disagreement, they retreat. They hope that if they say nothing, the tension will fade. But avoidance rarely heals anything. What begins as one quiet evening after a fight can become a pattern of withdrawal, leaving you feeling unseen and unheard. And finally, the hardest truth: sometimes silence means indifference. When a man is no longer invested, his words stop flowing. His absence of communication becomes the loudest message of all, that his heart has already turned away. Mia once told me about her boyfriend, Daniel. When he grew quiet, she assumed it meant he was falling out of love. She replayed every moment, wondering what she had done wrong. Later, she discovered that Daniel was under immense pressure at work, facing layoffs and sleepless nights. His silence was not a reflection of her worth, it was his own struggle. But here is the lesson. Silence, whether born of stress or neglect, still leaves her with the same question: what do I deserve in love? Because silence comes in many forms. Some silences are temporary pauses, spaces where a man regathers himself. Some silences are permanent exits where he has already stepped away in everything but words. The problem is not silence itself. The problem is whether you see its true nature. A man's silence is not always a verdict on your value, but it is always information. It tells you about his readiness, his maturity, his willingness to face life alongside you. And perhaps the real wisdom is this: instead of fearing the quiet, learn to listen to what it reveals. Because as painful as it feels, silence often tells the truth that words try to hide. Some silences are temporary, some are forever. The question is not whether he is quiet, but whether you can see clearly what that quiet really means. Decoding the silence. Not all silences carry the same meaning. Sometimes quiet is a form of care. Other times, it is avoidance. And in the most painful cases, silence is a goodbye that was never spoken out loud. To navigate love without losing yourself, you need to learn how to decode it. I often think of silence in relationships as traffic lights. Each light sends a different message, and your task is to recognize which one you're standing before. Green silence is the safe kind. It is the quiet of comfort, the pause after a long day. Imagine your partner coming home from work, exhausted, and sitting quietly on the couch. He isn't pulling away, he's recharging. This silence is not rejection. It's restoration. In healthy love, silence can be a space where two people breathe together without needing to fill the air with words. It is the calm after the storm, the stillness that says, I trust you enough to be quiet with you. Yellow silence is caution. It shows up when difficult topics arise: commitment, marriage, the future you hope to build. Jane, a woman I met in Boston, once told me about her boyfriend, Eric. Every time she mentioned moving in together, Eric fell silent. Not for an hour, not for a day, but for weeks. At first, Jane explained it away. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he needed time. But as the pattern repeated, the truth became clear. His silence was not reflection. It was avoidance. Yellow silence warns you that what you desire and what he is ready to give may not align. And the longer you ignore the caution, the more painful the wake-up call becomes. Red silence is the ending no one wants to name. It is when a man withdraws completely. His messages fade, his calls vanish, and you feel the cold distance where warmth once lived. Red silence is ghosting in disguise, a way of leaving without the courtesy of words. It hurts deeply because it denies you closure, but it also tells you the truth. He is no longer willing to stand beside you. As cruel as it feels, red silence is clarity. It says, this chapter is over, even if he never dares to speak it. Here's the part we rarely talk about. Silence not only reveals something about him, it reveals something about you. When he falls quiet, what rises inside you? Anxiety, fear, anger? Or the quiet strength that whispers, I deserve more than this uncertainty? The way you interpret his silence often reflects the wounds you carry. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll see every pause as proof of rejection. If you know your value, you'll see silence as information, not as a verdict. Decoding silence is not about analyzing every pause or guessing every thought. It is about noticing patterns and honoring your feelings. Is his quiet restful, avoidant, or abandoning? Does it give you peace, or does it leave you doubting your worth? Because in the end, silence will always speak. The question is, will you have the courage to listen, not only to him, but to yourself? When he is silent, what do you hear inside yourself? The echo of fear or the reminder that you are worthy of a love that speaks clearly? How to respond without losing yourself? When silence falls between you and the man you care about, the first instinct is often panic. Your mind races, your fingers itch to send another message, your heart whispers, maybe if I try harder, he'll come back. But here's the hard truth. Chasing silence only deepens the emptiness. The more you run after it, the louder your doubts become. The question is not how to silence the silence, but how to respond without losing yourself. Step 1. Don't chase. Silence is unsettling because it feels like rejection. Chloe, a woman I once spoke with, remembered how she used to send message after message when her boyfriend withdrew. She would scroll through her texts, seeing her own words stacked one after another like unanswered prayers. And with every unreturned message, her worth seemed to shrink. One day, exhausted from the cycle, she stopped. Instead of chasing, she let the silence breathe. It was painful, yes, but in that space she realized something. His silence spoke louder than her words ever could. From then on, she decided not to fill the void with desperation, but with patience and observation. Step 2. Set clear boundaries. Silence may be a man's habit, but you have the right to name what you need. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they are truths spoken out loud. Saying, "I need open communication to feel valued," is not a demand. It's a declaration of your self-respect. If you cannot meet that need, it isn't your job to shrink. It is his choice to step up or to step away. Boundaries remind you that love is not about begging for crumbs. It is about standing tall enough to say, "This is how I deserve to be treated." Step 3. Return to yourself. Silence is not only his absence, it is also your opportunity. Instead of staring at the phone, waiting for a reply that may never come, fill your days with life again. Take the yoga class you've been postponing. Call your best friend for a glass of wine. Pick up the hobby that once made your eyes shine. Chloe found healing when she shifted her energy inward. She joined a painting workshop, started running along the river, and slowly realized that her life could be full even without his constant presence. Ironically, the more she invested in herself, the less his silence had the power to wound her. Step 4. If silence repeats, be brave enough to walk away. Everyone deserves patience, but patterns reveal the truth. If silence becomes a cycle, disappearing without explanation, reappearing without apology, it is not reflection. It is disregard. Love requires presence. If he cannot offer his words, his honesty, or his effort, then staying becomes an act of self-abandonment. Walking away does not mean you failed. It means you chose to honor your worth over his absence. As one woman told me after leaving such a relationship, the hardest silence to face was not his. It was my own. The silence I carried inside because I refused to admit I deserved more. Here's the lesson that ties it all together. You cannot control a silence, but you can choose how you fill it. Don't fill it with endless questions, panic, or fear. Fill it with your strength, your passions, your boundaries, your truth. Because silence, when met with self-respect, transforms from a wound into wisdom. Don't fill his silence with your fears. Fill it with your strength, turning silence into your superpower. Silence can feel like a punishment, but it can also become a mirror. What if, instead of staring at the blank screen, waiting for his name to light it up, you turn that quiet into a conversation with yourself? Take Emma, the woman from our opening story. At first, she spent hours refreshing her phone, rereading old messages, wondering what she had done wrong. Each moment of silence felt like rejection, each unanswered text a verdict. But one morning, as she sat in the same cafe where they once laughed together, she realized she could either keep drowning in questions or start asking different ones. Instead of, "Why isn't he texting me?" She wrote in her journal, "What do I want from love? What do I need to feel safe?" That single shift opened a door. She began journaling every evening, letting her worries spill onto paper instead of circling endlessly in her mind. She joined a gentle yoga class at a studio near her apartment, her body stretching into spaces she had neglected. She started noticing the warmth of sunlight through her window, the smell of coffee in the morning, the laughter of strangers in the park. The silence that once hollowed her out became the very space where she began to heal. Silence, in truth, is like a blank page. You can cover it with scribbles of fear, letting it remind you of what is missing. Or you can choose to write something new, words of self-compassion, plans for growth, dreams you had tucked away while waiting for someone else's attention. Every moment he withdraws is also a moment you can return to yourself. Emma did not wake up one morning completely healed. Healing rarely works that way. But slowly, she discovered that she no longer needed his words to feel whole. The silence that once felt unbearable became her teacher, reminding her that her life was not defined by a man's presence, but by her own voice. So here's the truth. When a man goes silent, you have a choice. You can chase after the echo of what isn't being said, or you can turn inward and listen to the voice that has always been waiting, your own. Silence is not always an ending. Sometimes it is the beginning of a deeper conversation with yourself. Silence in love is not the period at the end of your story. It is the pause that asks you to turn the page. It is not always a punishment, nor is it always a sign of rejection. Sometimes it is simply a mirror, reflecting back to you what you truly deserve: clarity, respect, and love that speaks without fear. Remember this: you cannot control the silence of a man, but you can choose how you respond to it. You can allow it to shrink you, or you can let it guide you home to yourself. His silence is not your verdict. Your response is your power. So if you are listening to this and feel the sting of unanswered messages or the ache of conversations left unfinished, take a breath. Know that you are not defined by what he withholds. You are defined by the love you choose to give yourself. If this message resonates with you, follow Aura Rise to continue this journey of self-love and mental health. Here we are building a space where women rise stronger together, where silence becomes strength, and where healing begins with you. Share this video with a friend who might be hurting in the quiet of her own relationship. Sometimes the right words arrive through us just when another woman needs them most. And before you go, leave a comment below. What did his silence teach you about your worth? Your words might be the gentle reminder another woman, somewhere in the dark, needs tonight.